Hello, welcome friends. Today we start the journey of services marketing for third semester. This is the first unit. We'll start with the first unit. This tells us something about how the services is being delivered and what is the difference between the services and the products and what really makes the services to become so special uh, for the marketer, right? So we have seen the marketing of the products, even though there is no much difference, between many what we use in marketing will be used in services also. Let's start the journey of understanding the services, right? So we all know that goods are first produced, then it is sold to the customers by various medias, then is supplied through the supply chain, then the consumer will consume. But that's somewhat different in case of services, right? So where you see there, services are first sold. Say for example, right, we are going to a beauty salon, right? How will you select that beauty salon? Right? We select the beauty salon based on our prior intimations, information search, and so many things, right? So it is only when consumer visits that beauty salon or the beauty parlor, so there, only when the service is being produced. And in a nutshell, right, so we can just see, look at the definition. Many of us know it already, right? Services are the deeds, processes, and the performances provided or co-produced by any one entity or a person for another entity or a person, right? Or we can simply say that the activities, right? So which we can't see, right? So where we can call them as the services, right? So it is only be experienced, right, and felt, right? You can't see. And when we look at the products, the spectrum, we consume the lot of the products and services every day. When we divide these products, right? So in the continuum of tangibility, right? So tangible, some are tangible dominant, some are intangible dominant. You can look here, right, from salt to teaching, as I'm doing now, right? Salt is very minimal service, right? What apart from the product attributes, right? There is no absolutely service components. When we come back from salt to the the fast food outlets, there you can see the fast food outlets where we call it's both tangible and intangible dominant. For example, if we go to the restaurant, right, we may not prefer the restaurant where the food is bad. It doesn't, have a tastiness or hygiene or whatever the taste the customers are expecting. At the same time, we don't prefer the restaurant where you know ambience is not there, right? The service is not being delivered properly. Behavior of the waiters or the behavior of the manager or whoever, right? So it is both, right? So literally, these restaurants we call them as quasi manufacturing. That means we call it as both, where service is equally important as the product or the food what they serve. But unlike what you can see in the salt, right? It is product dominant, right? So where there is absolutely no point of the services that comes into picture in manufacturing of the salt. So now when we go further from fast food outlets to advertising agencies, airlines, investment management, any form of consulting, right? So and teaching, which are tangible dominant. That's the reason, right? That's the reason where it makes us so for the services marketer to they market the services, because I can't see this. It is so challenging that what exactly I need to make the customers to believe, or how can I make the customers to come to my services, and avail my services. Right? That's the challenge. Right? It's because services cannot be manufactured and kept. We'll see this right in the further slides, but that is where you can see there, right? So I cannot manufacture and keep it the services like any of the products, like maybe the laptops, washing machines, fridges, mobiles, or whatever it is. That is so the challenging. That's the reason where you find otherwise, right? So there is no need for us to study this services marketing as a separate entity or a separate you know the subject. You can see that what is so special about the services marketing, right? It focuses on the distinctive characteristics of the services and how they affect both consumer behavior and marketing strategy, right? So the below you can see the example, right? Many services are produced and delivered when the customers are present. When we think of this, right, there are two three types of services, right? Say for example, in without a customer we cannot complete the service delivery system, right? So production happens in services only when the customer, comes to the service delivery system, right? So we never know in product, right? We have never been visited any of the mobile manufacturing company or the laptop manufacturing company or shoes manufacturing company, right? Where customer is not required for the input process output. In many of the services, you find that customers are required, where the customers will participate there as a participant or customer as a product. Say, for example, you all go to ATMs to withdraw the money, or we go to the bank, right? That service delivery is will not be completed unless and until, right, we go to the bank. That means we go to the bank or we go to the ATM, put our card, enter the pin, take the money. So in this case the customer is participating as a participant. Without him or without the customer we cannot really complete the process of production. That's why in the previous slide we were referring that the services cannot be stored, right? It cannot be stored and inventoried, right? So in another case, right, so in some services, right, so you find the customer as a product. Say for example we visit dentist, right? He operates on our teeth only. He cannot operate on somebody else's teeth, or he cannot complete the process before and say that your teeth is okay. We should be there as a service delivery system. Customer should be present. Customer must be there for the process to be completed. Or we go to the doctor, or we go to the hairdressing salons, or might be we go to the say for example the beauty salons, at where customer participates there as a product, right? The service provider, say doctor, will operate on customer only, on the patient only. So that is what is so special, right? So that never happens in the product manufacturing. When we are manufacturing a mobile or the laptop, that doesn't happen. So this is what the speciality, the services. But when we look in, right, so why do we study services, right? When you look back, right, earlier it was the production dominant the industries, or it's a production dominant a contribution, the major contribution to the GDP. But of the late, right, 1960s in the US and other economies, now developing countries also, around 50% of their GDP contribution comes from the services, right? So economies have slowly evolved from the cottage industry or a factory system, from there to now they have become service-based economies, right? And service is the integral part in many IT firms. And moreover, the industries are deregulated, and there is a lot of need for the professional services. And that's the reason why it's we focus on it. But you can just go through this slide. Why do the firms they focus on services? Right? Maybe it's because service provide the higher profit. It doesn't mean key goods will not provide the profits. Maybe services also provide the profits later it's been recognized, right? And the customer satisfaction, and the loyalty are driven by service excellence. Okay. So we'll quickly look into the factors which are basically fostering the growth of the services. It's There are a number of factors what you can see on the slide. Maybe because of the increasing affluence, right? So people are becoming more, they're richer and richer, and there's a requirement for, laundry care and household, the products, maybe the interior decorations and all, right? Then maybe the second reason is that maybe the people are, getting, more leisure times, the considering the changes that happen in the working class, the people, greater demand for recreations, like might be the resorts or the maybe any entertainment facilities, right? Then one more important factor here, the human labor force has, the percentage of the human labor force is increased when we consider the man and woman ratio in the working population, right? So as woman goes out of the home for work, maybe for 5 hours, 8 hours, or whatever, so then automatically then there is a need for the services, or there is a need for specific services to fulfill you know the this gap which has been provided, like for babysittings, household services, or maybe the crunches, demand for the crunches, and that things really make sense for the services. Then as you see there, you know as we are expecting the more greater life expectancy, right? Then there is need of more things like nursing homes, healthcare services, or the health clubs, so many things. Then might be because the complexity of the products has made you know the people, right, the trained or the technical people to come into requirement of for the service, right? Then maybe you can see that increasing complexity of the life, there's a greater demand for specialists, like maybe the consultants, the lawyers, the psychiatrists, right? Maybe the legal consultants, marriage consultants, and other employment services, right? There is a need because of the considering the lifestyle, what the people are living it now, or maybe around 30 years ago. So there is a lot of difference, right? The life has become more complex and more stressful, and everything is become the target oriented. Hence, the new types of services have gained the importance. Maybe like the health clubs, health fitness kinds of services, or might be, the counselors, right? All the form of, the counselors. And one more is, we are worried about the natural resources, right? So this made us to, make us to, the grow the service industry, right? Maybe some demographical the changes, right? Rise in life expectancy, maybe the social changes, right? These are all the factors what we have already discussed. Maybe some economic changes like globalization, right? ITs, political and legal the factors which made them made we want the services to get increased. Here, these are the some of the major categories of the services. I think we all know this, right? You can just go through that. Those services I have just listed few of the services which are required in these two slides, like management, software, consulting, training, financial, marketing, travel, catering, and the list goes, right? And apart from this, might be you might have the service organizations which are having the international corporations, like might be any banks or the airlines, telecom industries, or maybe somebody will be having a chain of hotels, flight services, or at the same time you find locally owned taxi fellow, or locally owned, maybe the courier service, or the hotels, or it might be internet fellow, or it might be laundry fellow, right? or might be you might find franchisee owned businesses, right? Any food outlets, or it might be education, right? So these are of the services, the organizations. Now we are coming here to the most important aspect of the product and service. Let us try to understand what is the difference. This difference makes the marketer to think so much about the services, right? You can see that in the slide. Services are a intangible, sorry, and products are tangible. Products are homogeneous and heterogeneous, right? Because services, they say that everyone is having his own way of interpreting. The service which is good for me may not be good for you, right? And you know the consumption and the distribution of the product is separated in case of products, but in services is simultaneous, right? Production and distribution and consumption, right? Say that's what happens in the restaurants, that's what happens in the health clinic, that's what happens in the hospital, that's what happens when you go to any beauty parlor, right? So these are some of the important differences that you can see. Maybe the service cannot be stored, right? I cannot just store the services, right? Unless and until I go to the beauty parlor, so that I'll become a beautiful. Or if I go for hair cutting services, unless and until I go there, it doesn't we cannot perform it, right? So I cannot just manufacture and store it. As I told you before, like any of the tangible products, that's what we can see. In continuation with the difference, right? You can say there, products may or may not be perishable, right? But service are perishable, right? And services are separable. These are inseparable, right? Easier to market. Products are very easy to market. It's more difficult to market, right? Services, in case of services, we find slightly difficult in terms of the controlling the quality of the services, as many of the cases it is delivered by the human beings. That every human being will have the kind of what we can say, the variations in delivering. It's in human born, right? So we can't avoid it. Every process or the every machine, of course, will have, but the human might have more variations. And it depends on so many psychological and other, the factors. That's the reason we say that it's, I can't control much over the quality. So when we look in the characteristics of the services, these five characteristics of the services makes the services marketing so challenging. Or in fact, we can say that this makes the existence of the services marketing, or this makes the students to study the services marketing as a separate, the course or the separate subject during their studies, right? So first thing, some of the things that we have discussed already. First character is intangible, right? Services are intangible, right? I cannot see them. I can only feel it and I can only experience it. And services are heterogeneous. And services are perishable, right? You cannot store it. And the most important is I cannot own the ownership. Even though we are having a network for our phones, say for example, it might be Airtel, Vodafone, or whatever it is, right? Even though we have this, but I cannot own, right? I can't really own it. The owner of maybe if you have Geo, maybe the Amanis will be owning it, right? But when it comes to the products, you buy a mobile, that means that's it. Title of the mobile is yours. You will be owning that mobile. Many of the services, right? You go to the hospital to take the treatment. You cannot own the hospital there, right? I can just avail the services, right? Many things, right? Ownership cannot be owned here. And another important factor is the simultaneous production and consumption of the services, right? So I cannot store it. That's what I have been, the telling. Let us look into this in further, the detailed what happens because the services are intangible. Since the services are intangible, right, I cannot inventory them. Since the services are intangible, I cannot easily patent it. Right? How will you give? Right? How will you patent? Product means you have a physical, right, to see and to make it. And the most important, where you can see here, because the services are intangible, I cannot display and communicate it so like what we do it in a product, right? And pricing is also difficult, right? How you are really making the customer to accept your the prices, and how you are making your customers to accept the prices that you are charging. You might find a restaurant which charges heavily, you might find the restaurant which charges less, or you find the restaurant which might charge moderately. So this makes it difficult, right? So where the customer has to accept that kind of a perception about the services is to be built, or the image of the company or the services. Maybe at times we never mind you know giving a premium and availing the services, and at times we do mind paying a pay extra to avail the services. That's because of the intangible nature of the services that makes us to they really uh, think of intangibility. So, as we have seen, the services are heterogeneous. Fine, service delivery. That's why does this happens, right? It happens, because service delivery and customer satisfaction depends on employee and customer actions. Even the all the say for example, you are going to the bank. Even all the frontline executives have been trained on the similar platform, or you go to the any service center. Even though all the frontline executives have been trained on the similar platform, but the delivery depends on the each individual, right? And his actions. And he may not be the same because he is not a machine. Employee is a human being where he will be having the influence of many internal and external factors that comes in between with delivering of the services. That makes you know this the services heterogeneous, and that's why it says that many uncontrollable factors like this what I have told, right? So services, let us see the implications of simultaneous production and consumption. Right? That's what I was telling you. Customers participate and affect the transaction. You go to the bank, right? Each customer is different. Somewhere they say that maybe we need to end the customer relationships also. We don't want the customer who troubles. We don't want the customer who is very rigid and the changes the entire service delivery systems. And each customers affect each other, right? And every employee affects the service. That's the reason you find decentralization is essential. And we have never seen, that's what we have been discussing, right? We have never seen maybe the factory of the soap. We have never seen a factory of a toothpaste manufacturing. We are not visited, right? Maybe the factory is somewhere else, maybe in North India, right, or in South India. So entire might be the entire South India is supplied through that factory. The North India is supplied from a North Indian factory, right? So this doesn't happen, right? This doesn't happen in case of services, where if I want to cater to a particular segment or the particular location, right? I cannot really bring the customers to that location traveling. Say for example, you take a bank. Customer cannot go to bank traveling for 10-15 kilometers, right? So where you need a branches, that's why you find there are many organizations. That's why you find 3-4 branches in a one city. That's why you find in a particular location 2-3 ATM machines, right? Decentralization is essential here, and it's unlike the product where I can manufacture and send it. That doesn't happen, and mass production is really difficult because I cannot store this. Now we'll see the implications of the perishability. It is difficult to synchronize the supply and demand with the services. We'll see that because very nature of the services, very nature of services. That's what you find, right? I cannot store this, right? Then the capacity is lost forever, right? I cannot bring it back, the capacity which is being lost. That means if a beauty parlor doesn't get any customer today, then maybe that beauty parlor, the capacity whichever has been lost is lost forever, right? So they cannot take it for tomorrow, unlike the products, right? Product can be manufactured and kept it, you can keep it. So then, there are some challenges of the services. Of course, these challenges will be there. You can just go through this, the lines. It's understandable and maybe the self-explanatory. Some things are difficult here. Say you can see there, ensuring the delivery of consistent quality, as there is a human intervention in terms of employees, human intervention in terms of customers. Many services, customer will be going there as a participants. Many services, as I told, customer will be visiting there as a product. This makes so different for us, right? So you can just go through the slide, they're self-explanatory. And this is very important, the concept. Maybe I'll just discuss these issues in the next presentations. Thank you, friends.